Greetings and peace. I would like to start this with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace be with you and yours. Today's presentation I would like to cover the Masonic Cornerstone from a Sufi Islamic perspective. I hope you all enjoy this, and I thank you all for always sticking by me. Disclaimer that this presentation is created for entertainment, free speech, and educational purposes only. It is not an endorsement of Freemasonry, nor an encouragement to join any fraternal, secretive, or political organization. The material presented here is comparative, historical, and symbolic, intended to explore ideas, traditions, and ethical teachings across civilizations for personal reflection and education. The presenter, Salman Sheikh, yours truly, explicitly rejects racism, bigotry, elitism, and political manipulation historically associated with certain European fraternal institutions. Now, the viewers are encouraged to basically extract universal ethical teachings and apply them constructively to their own lives, right? The application phase of knowledge. For deeper discussion, context, and dialogue, I encourage you all to check out my Islam, Sufism, and Freemasonry playlist on my YouTube channel. We start with the introduction, reframing the cornerstone. The cornerstone is often presented within modern Freemasonry as a civilizational and moral invention of Europe, particularly crystallized after the 1717 Grand Lodge model. This narrative, however, collapses under historical scrutiny as it ignores older, richer, and more coherent spiritual systems that already articulated the same principles with greater ethical accountability. Islamic civilization, and especially Sufi metaphysics, approached the idea of foundations not as institutional symbolism, but as existential truth. Long before lodges and degrees, Islam framed the human being, society, and sacred space as structures that either stand or collapse based on the integrity of their foundation. 1717 model and its limitations. The 1717 Masonic model emerged in a specific European context marked by colonial expansion, class stratification, and racial hierarchy. Its symbolic system reflects these conditions, emphasizing secrecy, rank progression, and institutional loyalty over universal moral accountability. By contrast, Islamic and Sufi teachings reject moral authority derived from institutions. Ethical legitimacy flows only from alignment with divine truth, justice, and service, rendering later European claims of moral primacy historically and spiritually untenable. The Quranic foundations of construction. The Quran repeatedly employs architectural metaphors to distinguish truth from falsehood. In Surah At-Tawbah, Surah 9, verse 109, God contrasts those who build upon taqwa with those who build upon a crumbling precipice, destined to collapse despite outward appearance, and taqwa is having that faith and accountability. This establishes a universal law. Foundations determine outcomes. Unlike symbolic initiation, the Quranic model ties every structure, personal, social, or spiritual, to accountability before God rather than allegiance to a closed fraternity. The Sufi science of inner architecture. Sufism treats the human heart as a sacred structure under continuous construction. The cornerstone of this structure is ikhlas, sincerity, without which prayer, knowledge, and symbolism degrade into performance. Sufi masters insist that excavation precedes elevation. Ego, racial superiority, and spiritual pride must be removed before any foundation can be laid, directly contradicting systems that elevate status before character. Your intention is the first cornerstone. The prophetic teaching that actions are judged by intentions establishes niyyah, your intention, as the first and most critical stone in any structure. Without correct intention, even monumental works become spiritually void. This emphasis renders later symbolic ceremonies insufficient on their own. Islam locates moral weight not in ritual complexity, but in inward alignment with divine purpose. Labor as worship, not theater. Islam sanctifies labor itself. Honest work, craftsmanship, and service are treated as acts of worship, a halal income and a halal vocation, embedding ethics directly into material construction. This contrasts sharply with symbolic labor detached from social justice. In Sufi ethics, a structure built without fairness, humility, and service is already spiritually condemned. The Kaaba, an archetypal cornerstone. The Kaaba represents the ultimate sacred foundation in Islam, rebuilt by Prophet Abraham, and Ismail upon divinely designated foundations. Its authority derives not from human organization but from divine command. Its simplicity dismantles claims of civilizational supremacy. The Kaaba centers humanity equally around God, rejecting racial, national, and institutional hierarchy. The Hajar al-Aswad, the heavenly stone. Islamic tradition holds that the black stone descended from heaven, serving as a physical marker of covenant rather than an object of worship. Its presence affirms a sacred reality not produced by human hands. This directly parallels and predates the later analogy of a house not made with hands in Freemasonry, demonstrating that Islamic metaphysics articulated this truth centuries earlier without secrecy or elitism. A house not made with hands. The Kaaba is simultaneously physical and metaphysical, pointing to a divine order beyond material construction. Its sanctity is inherent, not conferred by ritual initiation. This exposes later European symbolic claims as a derivative, what Islam lived as a reality, later systems abstracted into metaphor. And if you look inside the Kaaba, you have the pillars and the altar, right? The three pillars of strength, beauty, and wisdom, and the altar. And the Kaaba, the perfect ashlar, house of God, the perfect ashlar stone. And the top of the Kaaba, the shape of the oblong square. And around the Kaaba, people are doing their rite of circumambulation, as was later adopted in the Masonic systems, by wearing the ihram, where everyone is equal, regardless of race or background. The Sufi saint Mia Mir in the Golden Temple of the Sikhs. In the late 16th century, the Sufi saint Hazrat Mia Mir laid the cornerstone of the Sikh Golden Temple at the request of Guru Arjan Dev Ji, embodying spiritual universality in action. And it's so interesting about the Golden Temple in India, where they have 4 different entrances, right? Just like how the lodge is situated, and how the cornerstone was laid by a Sufi saint. So these traditions predate, right, the European claims of superiority. This act required no secrecy, oath, or hierarchy, and it stands as a physical, historical proof that Islamic spirituality practiced inclusivity long before European fraternities theorized it. Universality without domination. Hazrat Mia Mir's participation was rooted in humility and service, not symbolic authority. There was no claim of ownership over sacred space, as they were all on the level. This directly undermines supremacy narratives embedded in colonial-era institutions that equate universality with control, and the reason why many of these countries had banned French and English Freemasonry, because they were being used as places of colonialism and tools to spread colonialism. Claims that Europe inherited or perfected ancient wisdom ignore Islamic civilization's preservation of ethics, science, and architecture during Europe's intellectual stagnation, and it was the Moorish Islamic presence in Spain that brought Europe out of darkness. This selective memory functions as an ideological propaganda rather than history. Racism as a cracked foundation. Any system tolerating racial hierarchy contains a structural flaw at its base. No symbol can repair injustice embedded in foundation. Islam categorically rejects racial superiority, declaring that nobility lies only in righteousness, rendering supremacist models spiritually invalid, and the content of your character. Inner construction over external rank. Sufi advancement is measured by purification of character, not degrees or titles. Authority emerges organically through service and wisdom. This dismantles hierarchical systems that confuse rank with righteousness. Transparency versus secrecy. Islamic spirituality requires no secrecy to function ethically. Truth stands independent of concealment. Where secrecy shields injustice, transparency restores balance and accountability. The collapse of hollow structures. History demonstrates that structures built on arrogance inevitably collapse, regardless of symbolic sophistication, as we will see with the Grand Lodge system of Freemasonry that we see now, that by the 2030s, it's going to be changed drastically. Sufi literature identifies spiritual pride as the silent fracture that destroys entire systems. Ethics do not belong to institutions or civilizations. There are universal truths articulated by prophetic traditions. Recognizing this frees individuals from psychological colonization and symbolic dependency. In Islam, the cornerstone is renewed daily through intention, prayer, service, and ethical action. It remains alive through accountability and not frozen in ritual. So there is that application phase of knowledge that you need. Knowledge without power games. Sufi masters transmitted knowledge without turning it into currency for domination. When knowledge becomes leverage, the foundation has already failed. Especially in Freemasonry, right, where you're practically paying for friends. And as soon as you leave, even in good standing, it's like those people were never there, right? The messages, the invites, the social media likes and messages, or the phone calls, it all stops. So you're just basically paying a subscription to have friends. And I think it's about time that many people cancel that subscription. Building the self as sacred labor. Every habit and intention is a stone placed in the inner structure. Neglect at the foundation guarantees collapse later. We have to look at this situation beyond symbols. Symbols matter only insofar as they point towards lived ethics. Without justice and humility, symbolism becomes decoration for ego. The conclusion we're dealing with is that Islam predates the model. Islamic and Sufi traditions articulated, lived, and enforced cornerstone ethics centuries before the 1717 Masonic model emerged. This historical reality dismantles claims of European moral or symbolic supremacy at their root. Here are references that I recommend in your studies, especially Surah Toba, Surah 9, verse 109, Martin Lang's book, What is Sufism, and all of these references that I have listed here in your further studies and exploration. And also, please check out my Islam, Sufism, and Freemasonry playlist, as I have compiled that since 2019 to help further explore this subject. Thank you for watching, and again, explore the playlist on my channel. Thank you for watching. If any questions or comments, please email me at salmansheikh911@gmail.com. And all my videos are under the copyright laws of fair use, which is for the purpose of nonprofit, free speech, education, entertainment purposes. Thank you so much. All rights reserved.